In the age when being a normal person is weird in and of itself, it is no wonder that our intellectuals are busy pathologizing as many things as possible. Now, first they started with the kids. That's how normal boyish behavior became hyper attention deficit disorder and good enough reason to drug pre-teenage boys with brain-altering drugs, such as Ritalin. Similarly, slightly uncommon activities of children that would have previously been filed under kids being kids are now reasons to pump hormones in them because they might be transgender. Similarly, we are now entering into the era of pathologizing adult behavior, starting with the failures at being adult. The World Health Organization now tells us that it is a disability for which one should get welfare if you're not able to have sex. And no, I'm not joking. Let's explore. Hello everyone and welcome to the Freedom Alternative. Now, there are few institutions that are more loathsome than the World Health Organization. Maybe the European Central Bank or the European Union itself could be worse than the World Health Organization, but not by much. So, coming from the Express, failure to find a sexual partner is now a disability, says the World Health Organization. Short article, so I'll read it in its entirety. Quote, "People who don't have sex or struggle to find a sexual partner to have children with will now be considered as disabled according to balmy new guidelines set to be announced. Until now, infertility, the failure to achieve pregnancy after 12 months or more of regular unprotected sex, was not considered a disability. But now, in a dramatic move, the World Health Organization will change the standard to suggest that a person who is unable to find a suitable sexual partner or is lacking a sexual relationship to have children will now be equally classified as disabled. WHO says the change will give every individual the right to reproduce. Under new rules, heterosexual single men and women and gay men and women who want to have children will now be given the same priority as a couple seeking IVF because of medical fertility problems. But critics branded the new laws as absurd nonsense, arguing that the organization has overstepped the mark by moving into social matters rather than health. Gareth Johnson, MP, former chair of the All-Parliamentary Group on Infertility, whose own children were born thanks to fertility treatment, said, "I am in general a supporter of IVF, but I've never regarded infertility as a disability or a disease, but rather a medical matter." Josephine Quintaville, from Comment on Reproductive Ethics, added, "This absurd nonsense is not simply redefining infertility, but completely sidelining the biological process and significance of natural intercourse between man and a woman. How long before babies are created and grown on request completely in the lab?" But Dr. David Adamson, an author of the new standards, argued it is a big chance for single and gay people. He added, "The definition of infertility is now written in such a way that it includes the rights of all individuals to have a family, and that includes single men, single women, gay men, and gay women. It puts a stake in the ground and says an individual's got a right to reproduce whether or not they have a partner. It's a big change. It fundamentally alters who should be included in this group and who should have access to healthcare. It sets an international legal standard. Countries are bound by it." Good Lord, these people are bloody insane. Alright, first of all, let's have a clear understanding about who is talking. The World Health Organization should be regarded with less confidence than The Guardian or The Huffington Post. I mean, occasionally those outlets print out something that is true or sensible. Now, admittedly, it's very rare, but it does happen. When it comes to the World Health Organization, this hasn't been the case for several years now. The WHO has been a good tool for social engineering, but a source of sensible health policy? Not even by a long shot. This is the same organization that told us we're in a global pandemic because a few hundred cases of a slightly more aggressive flu. The same organization that tells our teachers to teach our children about masturbation at the age of 3, for their own health, of course. It is also the same organization that still believes male genital mutilation prevents the spread of HIV, in spite of the overwhelming mountain of evidence to the contrary. They promise they will correct this mistake sometime this year, but, the bureaucracy is slow. So this is an organization that is slowly building up a consistent track record of being severely wrong, in addition to getting itself injected more and more into social and political debates where it clearly lacks any competence as per its own statutes. Alright, with that out of the way, let's look into the proposal of the right to reproduce. Now, first of all, the right to reproduce is not something that the WHO or any other authority, for that matter, can give to someone. It's, just like freedom of speech. It's a right inherent into individuals and can only be taken away by the authority or restricted by the authority, but it cannot be given. Secondly, the availability of IVF can, at best, be argued to enhance individuals' inherent right to reproduce, just like the existence of YouTube enhances the individual's right to free expression. But if YouTube dies tomorrow, that doesn't mean the right of free expression has died. Same goes with the IVF. Hospital policies, or indeed national legislative policies, on the availability of IVF have no bearing on the individual's inherent right to reproduce. Mandatory abortion, as it was the case until recently in some parts of China, does have a bearing on the individual's inherent right to reproduce. You see, this is a consistent problem with our philosophical opponents on the left. They genuinely think that just because something exists, it should definitely be a right. And what's more important, they genuinely think that there could be such thing as a right on someone else's dime or property. But IVF is not a right, and never has been. Neither is healthcare in general. These are commodities, just like iPhones, or cigarettes, or food. But perhaps the biggest problem with this latest insanity by the World Health Organization is not its inherent inability to distinguish between rights and abilities, but the fact that nobody is around to tell WHO to go home and get back to us when it has something useful to say about health and not about welfare policies. Because considering one's lack of a partner to breed with a disability is basically a political position that should be discussed in a parliament rather than by doctors at the WHO. And if this is to be the policy, then we have indeed gone full circle, paying welfare whores not to work and breed like rabbits, and at the same time paying virgins not to work and not to breed. Now, how insane is that? And if you think I am exaggerating, just wait till the first proposal of expanding the definition of disability comes on the desk of the first big government politician. If you think this won't be jumped at by politicians eager to get a new voting cohort in their corner with taxpayers' money, well, let me say that you haven't been paying attention to the latest growth of government. But in the end, maybe it's still a good thing. I mean, for starters, we'll be getting closer to having feminism classified as a disease. I mean, who the hell breeds with feminists anyway? With the inability to get someone to breed with them recognized as a disability, all we will need to do further is to simply make the case that their disability stems from feminism, and voila! Feminism officially declared as a disease. Now, admittedly, that would mean we as taxpayers will have to pay disability allowance to feminists, but thanks to insane laws that prevent those declared as disabled from working, we can also safely keep them away from government, the academe, the schools, and other positions from which they're poisoning our nations and communities. I mean, overall, it does sound like a decent enough trade-off to me. In all seriousness, though, the whole idea is just bonkers, especially from an ethical perspective. I mean, Mrs. Josephine Quintaville from the comment on reproductive ethics does ask a very pertinent question in the article. She asks, how long before babies are created and grown on request completely in the lab? And the question is very relevant. Because if inability to find someone to breed with is an officially recognized handicap or disability, then in many countries that automatically comes with a responsibility upon the state to try to ameliorate the situation. Creating and growing babies on request in the lab would indeed be one of the solutions if you have a single man coming in with a certificate that says he has this newly recognized disability. Now, would that be ethical? And if yes, where would one stop? Now, from where I'm standing, purposefully depriving a child from growing with his biological parents is immoral per se. Now, sure, there are situations where you don't have better choices, such as a biological parent dies, or the biological parent is mentally incapable, or is in prison, or is highly abusive, yada yada yada. Sure, in those situations, one is left with less than moral choices on the table, and one has to choose, well, the lesser evil. But in this scenario, this isn't the case at all. It's pure adult selfishness prioritized over the needs of the child. Now, why would anyone endorse this? And more importantly, why should the general tax-paying public be forced to financially support such a monstrosity? Amazing. I mean, let me put it this way, and then I'll wrap this up. If you can't even deal with adults good enough to find someone who will consensually breed with you, what makes you qualified and entitled to nurture a child? Single parenthood is cancer. Everyone knows that, both instinctively and backed up by research. Yet for some reason, the WHO is busy finding and pushing more ways into creating more single parents. Why? What possible benefit could any society draw from being compelled to financially back such thing? Anyway, what do you guys think? Am I overreacting here? Because that sure is a possibility, but I simply cannot see why would anyone consider this to be a good idea. So please do tell me in the comments. Maybe I am missing something, who knows? And with that being said, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you soon on Freedom Alternative.